Hey guys, welcome back. I know it's been a long time since I've spoken to you about anything, but I thought this would be as good of a way as any to say I'm not dead. I want to do some more videos, and I have time now to cover some more stuff. So let's get back into Unity and start building some stuff. I want you to leave some suggestions in the comments of this video about what you want to see. I have a list of stuff. I want to add some more stuff to it, and I'll figure out the order as it goes, as it expands, and see where we can go from here. I do have a couple more videos lined up for this, but after that I'll be running straight on suggestions because I don't know exactly what you guys want to see. I know most of you have probably moved past what we've done on this channel already, as it's been like a year since I've done a video, so I don't really know where we're at now or what you want to see. But for this video, we're going to be focusing on parsing JSON data in Unity using C#. Now, JSON is just a very simple way to store data. It's very human readable. It's similar to XML, but it's, in my opinion, so much better. I like reading it. I like writing it. I like working with it. And it's lighter, it's quicker to send over a network if you have to download something from a server. It's just all around better, in my opinion, for mostly everything. I'm sure there's cases where you can come up with something where JSON fails in comparison to XML, but for now our data is stored in JSON. I can show you a couple of examples of what I have here. I have a couple files. We have an item database, as you would expect. It has weapons with IDs, and I don't know why it's spaced out like that, and different data. Then we have hats, because why not? And then we have a string file that just contains some strings that are in categories. That's an example of something you could do if you have different, you're going to translate your strings to something else, to a different language. You don't want to hard code those strings into your game. You want to have a string file, and this is an easy way to do that. You can just parse out the data for your strings based on where you're at, based on the category, and then translate that into the file, load in that language file, and all your stuff's already translated for you. And the same thing with the items. It's very handy to have, because let's say you don't want to rebuild the game just because you changed a stat on an item. You can store this on your computer or on a server somewhere, change that information, do an update check to see if you have the recent version of the JSON data. If you don't, download the new file, and all your items are now up to date with what the server has or what you changed in the local file on your PC. So it allows modding to be done very quickly, very efficiently. So I think it's a great place to start on getting back into this. We can learn something that's going to help us a lot in game development, and I'm looking forward to it. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to note is we're using Unity, so we don't have the recent version or the most up-to-date version of .NET, and if we did, we could be using the JSON parser that comes with that, but we do not. So we have to use a third-party library. We're going to be using LitJSON. You can go to this link here. I'll have it in the description for you. Go to download and find the DLL. You're going to download that, and when you download it, what you have to do is just drag this from your downloads folder, and I'm just going to drop it into my Unity project assets folder. Now I have that library in here. If it's a DLL, if you've not worked with the DLLs in Unity before, I would suggest you go to this manual page here and figure out how to set it up in your IDE. Say you're using MonoDevelop. I'm not. I'm using Visual Studio. If you're using MonoDevelop, it'll be a slightly different process for setting up a reference. So come here, figure out how to do it if you're using MonoDevelop. If you're using Visual Studio, good for you. If you're not, I suggest you go here and get the free tools for using Visual Studio with your Unity project. Anyway, now that I have the library in my Unity project, I'm going to create a C# script real fast. I'm going to call this read JSON. I'm going to open this up. Okay. So with it opened up, what I have to do first is we're going to be reading this string or this text from that file that I showed you. We're going to be using the items file. And to do that, we have to access the file system. And if you've not done that before, this might be a bit new to you. We're going to be using system.io. We need this to be able to access the file on our system. This will give us access to a class called file. So the first thing I want to do is I want to set up a string. This will hold all of our string data from our text file, which would be JSON, but it's not going to be formatted in that way. It's going to be formatted, but it's not going to be stored in a JSON object until we convert it ourselves. So what I'm going to do is do private string, and I want to call this JSON string, just so we know what it is. And we're going to load this, all that string from, all the string data from our items, all of this, into that one object. Okay, so I'm going to do JSON string is equal to, and now we're going to access the file system. I'm going to do file dot, and there's a couple ways we could do this, but I'm going to do it all in one line, and the way I can do that is by using read all text. Now what this does is going to open the file, it's going to read out the text, and it's going to close the file, all in one method, and that's what we want. So all it needs is a URL or the path to the actual file itself. And to get that, what we're going to do is we're going to use something called application through that class there, application.data. Did I spell that incorrectly? Application.data path. And that's going to give us the path to our assets folder, no matter what the system we're on is. So if we're on Android, if we're on web, if we're on the actual editor itself, it'll get us to that folder we need to be in. It'll get us to that URL on the web server. Whichever way it works, it'll give us the correct path. So now we're in assets folder. Now we know that we have to go into our resources. That's where we keep our JSON at. You can put it wherever you want to put it, but I won't keep mine in resources. And it's going to be called items.json. That's what it's called. The extension is a .json file. And there you go. Now just to make sure this is working, let's go ahead and log this out and see what we have. JSON string. I'm going to go back into Unity. What I want to do, my computer is just going crazy. I want to attach this to the main camera. That's because, let's see. Yeah, that's because I want it to activate when the game starts, because we're using the start method. So when I click play, this should print out the data from that file. And it does. There's all the string text, all the text from the items.json file. So there we go, good to go. So to do that, we have to convert that string information into an object that we can run through, we can parse through it and get the elements out we want. So this library we're going to be using comes with, obviously, a built-in mapper for us. So we're going to be using LitJSON. Now, see what I did was I just typed in LitJSON and it was there. Well, if you don't have that, and you're not going to have that, you're going to go to References. You're going to right-click on References. Notice I have LitJSON there because I've been using it. Go to References, go to Add Reference, and you're going to go to Browse, go to Browse, and you're going to go to the file, or the folder, sorry, that has your LitJSON library in it. Now this, if you followed along, would be in your assets folder of your Unity project. And you're going to select it, click Add, and then click OK, and now you should be able to reference it within your project. Again, go to that page on the manual, the Unity manual. If you do not understand what I just said, it will guide you through doing it, no problem. So with LitJSON being used there, now I can use the classes and methods from that library. So let's create a private, and I know I don't have to be typing private, I like to define it out though myself. And create a private JSON data. Now this is something obviously that came along with that library. I'm going to call this item data. Now what we're going to do is this is what's going to hold our actual JSON object. The object that we're going to parse out into string text, stuff like that. So now I'm going to say item data is equal to, and we're going to use something called the JSON mapper. This is going to take our raw text, map it to a dictionary for us, and then we can read through it like you would any dictionary. Do toObject. We're not going to be using the type, we're just going to be using toObject. We're going to pass it our JSON string. Now item data contains a JSON data object. And that's exactly what we need. To give you an example of how this would work, let me see if I can parse out something and read something out for you. So we have weapons. We can go to weapons first. So let's do a debug. Debug.log. And we're going to go through item data. And the way this is set up, let's see. The way my JSON's set up is that I have an object that contains different elements that are items. So I would have to call the object, then call the actual index for the item I want, and then get the information from that. And we can set up a method to do this automatically for us, which we will do in just a second. But what I want to do is show you how this works right now. So item data, we're going to go through that. We're going to go through weapons. Notice that's the key to this right here. And that contains this information. So now we're going to go through this information. And we're going to go to, say, index of 1, which is the second one, because indexes start at 0 in C#. And I want to parse out the information. I want to read out the information that is the name of that. So let's go ahead and do name. And now if everything is correct, this should read out, this should debug, log out the name of that item. There we have rocket pistol, which I'm guessing is correct. I don't actually remember what I called that. Yeah, rocket pistol. And there you have it. So that's pretty simple to get set up, to get going with. But let's go ahead and flesh this out a bit more, because that'd be tedious to type that in every time. And well, let's see. Now let's make a method for this real quick. I'll create a JSON data code. It's going to return a JSON data object. Call it get item. Well, actually, we could just return a string. No, I want a JSON data object so I can go deeper if I have to. And this is going to contain, let's see. Well, actually, we need a string for the name that we're going to be getting, and we need a string for the type. And now what I mean by this is, what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to call this method, say I want to get an item by this name in this category. And we could not have the category and just call it by name, and it could go through all the categories and find that name. But I want it to be quicker, so I want to go straight to that name, or straight to that category, grab the item by that name, and pull it out. So what I will do is I'll say, let's go ahead and act like I'm calling this. So I'm going to be calling get item. I'm going to pass it the name of the item I want, which would be light rifle. And then the actual category itself, which I want one from weapons. And what this would do, what I want this to do at least, is return a weapon by the name of light rifle. We could set this up to be by name, to be by ID, to be by certain stats, so we could return stuff under a certain, if we have certain attributes that we want to sort by, we can do that. But for now, we're going to set up this way, and you can follow this to build out your own sorting system or whatever you want to do. So this is a JSON data method. It's going to return a JSON data object. So what I need to do is, I know that if there's not one by that name, I just want to return a null object. Just return null. If there's nothing by that name, give it nothing. And we can throw an error with that too. Say, we tried to query an item, it didn't exist, so there's a null item in place of it. We could do that. We're going to call a for loop here. We're going to cycle through every item within the category until we find the one by the name that we called. So for an example, we would do I is less than. We're going to go through item data. We know we're going to go through the one by the type, but not what I meant to do at all. By type. And get the count of those. So each item within weapons, we have 2. It'll go through twice. Compare the name to the name we passed it. If it matches, it found the correct item. And then I++. Increment the index. So within this, what we want to do is we want to see if, let me work this out in my head real quick. If the, if the item data of type, and then the index we're on. So we've cycled through, we're on 0 for the first time. This will be the first item. If its name, let's go ahead and convert that to string. If its name is equal to the name we passed it, then we know that we found the right one. So we can return that item just like that. So we know the name matches the name that we're cycled through on right now. We can return that item back to our method that called it here, and we'd have that JSON data item there. So what I could do actually is do a debug.log there. And what I'll do, let's see, actually, yeah, we can do that. And then get the, let's say, power from that, because that is an attribute that I have here under light rifle. I have power, should be 32. So this returns a JSON data object, which means this is in fact just JSON data object. So I can go ahead and go deeper and grab the power from that. And if we try this, I'm thinking everything's fine. It looks okay. Let's see. Go ahead and clear that off real quick. Okay, there's no errors. Should get 32. Okay, we do. Good. So we're on track here. But I just thought of something. What if... we could do it by the name or the slug. Because I added the slug to the database so that we could have something to grab a sprite from or a prefab from. And we could also call it by the slug itself. So we could go ahead and do that and make sure if it doesn't compare to the name, we could compare it to the slug and see. That'll be a bit slower though, because we're doing 2 checks per item. I'll do that, but you might want to figure out a way to go around this and just stick to one style of calling an item. But just to show you how I would do it, it'd be the same thing. You would do this, but then do, what is it called? Slug. .toString is equal to name. So that'd be the same thing. You go into the slug. I messed up somewhere. Oh, let me, what did I do? Oh, okay. There we go. So now it's going to grab the slug and see if it matches that one. If it doesn't, it'll continue on to the next one. But it will do that for each one. So it's going to be like half as fast or twice as slow. That should be okay though. So now I could call it by the slug name, which would be light rifle. As you can see, this would work just as fine. It's the same thing. 32, cool. And that's pretty much all there is to it. You could take this and use this setup to build out a list in your game from this data, or you could just keep reading from the JSON data itself. You wouldn't have to build out a list. You could take this stored on a web server, download it each time the game updates so everything's new and you know everything's up to date. This is a great way to handle that kind of thing. And the same thing with strings. You could do this, I mean, it's the same setup. You just parse through it like I did here, grab it from application and grab the name element, and then you have the name of the game, and then you could do it by levels. You can grab the name of the levels, and you can do that, and you can translate it to different languages, grab it into separate language files. It makes everything a lot easier, a lot more modular to work with. So I believe that's going to do it for this video. I think I covered everything needed to get you started reading JSON in Unity 3D. I know I wish it was a bit more straightforward, built into C#, built into .NET, and it is in the newer library, but not in the one that Unity uses. We have been, it's been talked about updating for a while, so we'll see how that goes. But for now, this is the way I would handle it using a third-party library. If you have any questions, do be sure to ask me in the comments below. Make sure you leave your suggestions for future videos below as well. I'll be adding those to the list if they're not something I've already covered. If it's something I've covered, I will just direct you to the video or the series where I've done that. Again, guys, I really appreciate you sticking around. I know I've been gone for a very long time. I have been requested to come back quite a few times since then. My inbox is completely full of messages. There's no way I can go through those. So if you do want to say something, the quickest way to get to me right now will be on Twitter. I'll get that going again, and in the comments below here on this video. So thank you guys for watching. My name is Austin, and I will see you next time.